All right, let's see. Good evening. So, let's see. Jigsaw. Where's my. What was the name of that website? There was a website that has really cool ones. These are boring. Ugh, I don't like these. Jigsaw. I forgot what it was called. But anyway, so I do want to talk about the voices inside of each one of us. You know, just because there's a voice inside of us that's telling us something about ourselves, that doesn't mean we should believe that as a fact and as a true statement. For example, if you think inside of you, you hear all these thoughts that you're useless, you're dumb, you're stupid, whatever you hear inside you, take the time to pause a little bit and analyze what you're hearing before you just randomly believe this shit. Okay? Not everything you hear inside you is true. Sometimes the things you hear inside you are things that are just an echo from what you've heard growing up, from the closest people to you, like your own mom or your own dad. You know, that's probably where it's coming from. So just because you hear it inside of you, that doesn't mean it's coming directly from you. So I challenge you, if you have voices inside of you that's telling you certain things, I challenge you to pause and think about it. What is it telling me? What is this really telling me? Why am I saying all these bad things about myself? Where is it coming from? And you know, if you really dig a little bit deeper, you'll start figuring it out. You'll start figuring it out and figuring out where these voices are coming from. These voices could be your mom, your dad, your ex, ex-wife, ex-husband, whatever the case may be. But mostly our parents and the people that were with us for a long period of time during our young self can really shape who we are or who we think we are at the moment, at any given time, So as a growing person, as you grow in life, you don't want to carry that with you forever. You do want to stop and be more critical about, okay, do I really want to carry this nonsense around with me? Like, do I really want to keep believing that? Am I really going to keep echoing my mom's voice? And not everything you think is believable, and it's a fact. So don't believe everything you think, okay? Don't believe everything you think. Just because you think it, it doesn't mean it's true. And the voices inside you are not always your own intuition, okay? And the problem with these thoughts, why do we need to shut down these negative thoughts? Or at least find the source of them? Because if you don't shut down the negative thoughts, they turn into feelings. And when they turn into feelings, they can drive a certain behavior. And the behavior can be self-destructive, Wait, so you can actually have the picture and just put it on top? Oh, come on. That's too easy. So anyway, that's the problem with thoughts. Thoughts will can't talk this evening. Thoughts instill a feeling. And when you have a certain feeling, next thing you know, you start acting upon it. So you notice your behavior will reflect that. For example, overeating, or not taking care of your body, not going to the doctor, not doing your annual physical, not taking care of your health, not taking care of your mental health. All of these things are bad behavior for yourself, But where are they coming from? It's because you don't care about yourself. Why? Because you were taught at a very young age that you're not worthy. So all of a sudden now you're like, who cares if I'm happy or not? Who cares how I feel? But no, that's horrible. That's a horrible way to live. Another thing I want to point out is when you have a certain emotion, and it's taking over, like a very strong emotion, you got to learn how to sit with the emotion, sit with your feelings. You need to find an inner place that can listen to your feelings. So you have the feeling, which is sitting on a sofa. Picture the feeling as this entity sitting on a sofa across from you, and you're sitting right across from it. You see what I mean? Now you is sitting right across from it, but the feeling is on the opposite sofa. You're both looking at each other and trying to understand each other. You're not fighting, you're not arguing, you're not disrespecting one another, but you are just basically sitting with your feelings. That's all you're doing. And that alone, just the fact that you can sit like that and listen to your feeling and acknowledge what are you feeling, is a huge step into finding your inner peace and your inner voice. Once you have that kind of peace, believe me, no person in the world will trigger you anymore, because you know who you are and you can sit with those feelings. Feelings are just that. They're just feelings. They're not supposed to control you. They're not supposed to take over you. They're not supposed to guide every action you do. No, feelings are just feelings. They're just emotions. So you sit with it. Let's say I'm angry. There's a really crazy coworker that just really treated me unfairly, and I'm new to the company, and she's so close to the manager, and she went to the manager and said shitty things about me, even though I'm really new to the company and I'm really trying to earn the boss respect and earn the company's respect, because I'm really new person. And she saw me overwhelmed. She saw me struggling because I was new employee. And she went and started saying bad things about me to the manager, only because the manager was her best friend. You see what I mean? If the manager was somebody else, she wouldn't even dare to tell her these things. But she told her all these things about me, even though I was doing my job. But she was saying I'm not helping her and I'm not, a team player and blah, blah, blah. Now you can imagine that was my first job, okay? And I got so mad. I got so angry. And not only angry, I got just terribly sad. And my sadness turned into this raging anger. That was more than 11 years ago when I started working as a nurse in the hospital. And it was literally like my first week on my own without my preceptor. I had just finished training. I'm literally trying to get by. It's hard at first. If you're a nurse, or if you've ever seen someone going through nursing, the first year is like the hardest year to work by yourself. It's really frustrating. And she took this weakness, she took this vulnerability from me, and ran and said to the charge nurse that I was not a team player and I was not this and not that. And what pissed me off even more is that the charge nurse loved her so much that she just listened to her and listened to everything without even looking at the facts and without even looking at my work. So I loved my job. I worked so hard in nursing school to finish school and to get my first job in the hospital. So you can just imagine how frustrated I was and how just angry I was, okay? Now at that time, I didn't have this concept of sitting with my emotion. I didn't have that. I wasn't mature enough. I was in my 20s. I wasn't mature enough to understand that concept, So I just got angry and I stayed up all night, literally crying like a 11-year-old. I didn't know any better. All I knew is, you know what? I am so freaking angry and I am just going to sit there and cry, and I'm not going to even sleep. So I didn't even let myself go to sleep. I didn't even let myself rest, because that's how angry I was. And when I came the next day to work, I was just so livid, that I couldn't even control my feelings, couldn't even control my emotions. Now, this is a person who did not sit with the emotion. You see what I mean? I became very frustrated. And then when I got called to the office to explain myself, instead of really just stating the facts and stating that why, I don't think that was true, and I don't think I did anything wrong. Instead of just stating the facts, I was just talking with emotions, just emotions, emotions, emotions. And so I couldn't fight my case. I couldn't win my case, Why? Because I didn't sit with the emotions at home. At home, I let the emotions sit on me and sit on top of me. I let it win. So when you do sit with your feeling, it makes the emotion smaller than you. So it makes you have power, and it makes you have control over the emotion. Why? Because now you're the bigger person, and the emotion is the smaller person that's going to be listening to you. So the emotion becomes only a part of you. It's not who you are. So you don't just say, I am angry. No, you say instead, I feel angry. Part of me is angry. You see what I mean? There's a huge difference between I am angry or a part of me is angry. When you reduce the emotion to a part, it feels like a biteable size. It feels like, oh, this is manageable. I can deal with that. It's just a part of me, which means you didn't lose yourself. Yourself is still intact. In fact, guess what? Yourself is who's sitting across from your emotion, having this negotiation. So this is the power of cognitive behavioral therapy, is that you get to really reduce your emotions to parts of who you are. They don't consume you anymore. They just become parts of you. And that's what's called sitting with your emotion. So figure out the emotion you're feeling, like anger, sadness, and sit with it. Okay? Rather than letting the emotion be on top of you and take over, learn how to sit next to emotion, make it equal to you, And then eventually with time, after you listen to the emotion and let it just open up and burst and cry and vent, then the self who's sitting right across from the emotion will eventually, what's the word I'm looking for? Contain. The self will end up containing the part that's angry. The self will end up containing the part that's sad, and so on and so forth.